Nation, what is good? How are you guys feeling? First preseason game out the way. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be breaking down the good and the bad of the Chicago Bulls' loss to the New Orleans Pelicans. And yes, there is good. All that and more in today's episode of Locked On Bulls. Appreciate you guys tuning in and rocking with your boy. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. Let's go.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host today, Pat the Designer, going solo as Hayes is getting ready to head out of town a little bit. But we have to break down what we saw from the Chicago Bulls team tonight, because there's not only good, there's also bad. There's a little bit of ugly. We'll talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Bulls. Let's start it off, right? I think there's a lot of good to get in, and I'm a positive guy. I'm positive about where this Bulls team is going. I'm positive about the outlook of this Bulls team, and I think there's some positive things that you can take away from this team, right? As you start off your first game of the first season, right? The first half looked atrocious. The Bulls defense is still a struggle, to say the least, right? There's some things that absolutely can be worked about. But on the positive side, right, the one thing that I look at is I really liked how Billy Donovan started things off with his rotations. I really liked how Billy got the ball rolling with a lot of the players that he was putting on the court. I like the Zach LaVine, Ayo Dosunmu. We kind of got an inkling into who's going to be the starting point guard based on who they started off this season with, right? I like the fact that Ayo Dosunmu continues to hold that job. I think that's something big, right? Ayo Dosunmu, a player last season who was 10 points per game in his start to the season, right? And who was able to come out and give you some really good defense, come out and show you some flashes offensively, but at a minimum, right, was able to be a really solid player for you. And it shows that you have a belief in your young guys. So I really like how Billy Donovan kind of got things started off. And I think that we saw a difference a little bit in Billy Donovan's game plan here. Now, offensively, right, in the beginning of the game, not exactly going the way that you wanted it to go, but New Orleans really got out to a hot start in this game as New Orleans came, they finished out with a 129-125 win, right? And at the end of the day, you really look at kind of how they got started with that game, where how this game ended. The Bulls did end up taking a lead in this game in that second half. And I feel like, right, like it kind of showed you that this team has more to it than what you saw in that first half. The one thing that I will say that I really was excited about seeing this team was the continued success of DeMar DeRozan being able to come out there and play his game very well. He's just a machine at the end of the day. DeMar DeRozan, it doesn't matter what he does, he's going to be able to come out there, one dribble, pull up, two dribble, pull up, jay it in your face, whatever you need him to do. He's that level of player. And I think that that's really exciting when you're talking about the Chicago Bulls team, right? Like that you have that guy that you can count on. The other thing that I think was pretty exciting to me was seeing Zach LaVine kind of feel good with the three-point shot, being able to knock down some of those threes, right? And I think at the end of the day, the big thing with Zach LaVine is going to be being able to space the floor, being able to scare guys into, hey, we got to play out. We got to get out there. We got to get our hands up. And then he's going to have that ability to blow past you. What I will say is I didn't like that Zach LaVine was trying to drop all of the nutmeg shots, right? Like he was trying to do like the between the leg passes the entire night. And I was like, come on, bro. Like I get it's preseason, but like don't do this, because I don't feel like coming on here and seeing mugs, right, being ready to kill you, because all of a sudden, right, you're trying to throw these passes that we know you're not going to do during the season. We know that Zach LaVine's not going to do that day in and day out. But what I will say is this, right? At the end of the day, there was positives to see at a minimum from some players, and in your starting lineup that you have to hold on to. One thing for me, and probably the biggest thing for me, I talked about Billy Donovan kind of going out there and using or I liked the way that he set the lineups up. I like how the bench rotations came in. I think those are rotations that you'll see very much during the season. The one thing that I like from Billy Donovan that we didn't see last season, though, and I think this is the biggest thing that Chicago Bulls can utilize coming into this season, sticking with the hot hand. When you look at some of the numbers that came down the pipeline for the Chicago Bulls, right? At the end of the day, you want to see them stick with the hot hand. You want to see them stick with the hand that's going to put you in this a position to be successful. You want to see them stick with the hand that's going to put you in a position to get a win during the regular season. And it's something we didn't see enough of last season, right? It was something that the Chicago Bulls just didn't do enough of last season, right? Like there were times where Vooch would be cooking in the first half and they just wouldn't go to him in the second half. That was not the case today. I have to give credit where credit is due to Nikola Vucevic. 15 points, 10 rebounds. They continued to go to him throughout the game. I feel like Vooch really set himself apart. He showed himself not only offensively but defensively in this game, and I was really excited about that. 4 blocks in this game, 3 steals in this game, 3 assists in this game. We're still showing that he has that a passing ability. And of course, right, he talked about, hey, listen, what's going to make me the best player that I can be is going to be not just standing out there shooting the threes. And he knocked down a couple of threes, right? But not just standing out there shooting a three, but getting in the paint, being able to play the game that he was comfortable with. Those were some of the goods that I really keyed in on. The other one, right? And you guys are talking about it in the chat already. Here's the thing. Dalen Terry. My man Dalen. Good God. Dalen Terry, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. He looked like he'd been here before. He looks like he's been here before. Dalen Terry got out, not only just doing a great job offensively getting to the bucket, right? Dealing with the fouls, playing through the contact, looking like he was ready to be, looking like he was NBA ready, but coming with the NBA ready attitude. Not only just the NBA ready attitude, but the ability to not only just, okay, I'm going to get to the bucket, I'm going to score my points, but hey, guess what? I'm going to get my team involved. I'm going to get my team in the moment, right? He found Malcolm Hill how many times? Malcolm Hill knocking down some big shots for the Chicago Bulls as well, right? 10 points in 9 minutes of play? But Dalen Terry is a positive and another feather in the cap of AK. At a minimum, right? Like, listen, it's the beginning, it's preseason, but here's the thing. How do you feel about these guys starting it off moving forward? I'm talking about the positives right now, the goods of the Chicago Bulls. Right now, Dalen Terry feels like a good. He feels like he could be a feather in the cap of AK. He feels like he could be somebody that's going to end up being a serious player. And I said this, right? I said Dalen Terry is going to be a 5-5-5 guy, right? Like he's going to come out 5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, getting the job done, coming out 11 points early. And it's to what AK talked about. AK wanted to see him be a scorer. Guess what? The ball went into Dalen Terry's hand. He wasn't passing it. He was putting it up, pull up, 3, take this with you. And I'm gonna be real with you, right? Like I'm really excited about what Dalen Terry can bring to this team because this Chicago Bulls team at the end of the day was missing one thing. That glue guy. How many championship teams have the Bulls had? Have we talked about around the NBA that have that glue guy? Dalen Terry can be that glue guy. At the end of the day, I don't expect Dalen Terry to be a 25-10 guy. I just don't. It's not what I thought he was brought here to be. I thought he was brought here to be a couple of things, right? One, the glue guy that has the right attitude, has the right mindset, gets out there, wants to, hey, let's go. Hey, everybody get in positions. No, you can't be there. You have to be over there. The guy that's pointing out where the issues are wrong. And then on top of that, right, the one thing that I've said about Dalen Terry is Dalen Terry's the kind of player that I really feel like AK kind of knew what was coming with the Lonzo Ball situation and said, hey, listen, at the end of the day, we have to find not a replacement for Lonzo, but insurance for Lonzo. And when you watch Dalen Terry's game, right, while he's a more aggressive player going to the bucket, I feel like he's a player that you bring in and say, okay, let's look at what he can do, how he's able to pass, his ability to get the ball out there, and I could see him being a Lonzo replacement at some point. I'm not saying that's the end all be all. I'm not saying that's what it's going to come down to. But to me, Dalen Terry is the kind of guy that is going to push the envelope for this team, or is going to push people to the point where, hey, listen, I can absolutely take your job, so you better play better. And they're going to play better because of that, right? I think Dalen Terry is a very much Alex Caruso type of player, but maybe with a little bit more aggressive mindset. And that's what I like about it. That energy, that intensity. That intensity is something that the Chicago Bulls have missed for how many years? But since Joakim Noah? If we're being 100% honest, right, the intensity that Dalen Terry brings to a team, when's the last time we had that on our basketball team? Jimmy, maybe? To me, I would say probably Joakim more than anybody. I feel like that's the last time this Bulls team really had that, like, dig deep, go get it, go after it, make every play that you can to get the job done here, right? I think that that's more of what we saw from Dalen Terry. And I feel really, here's the thing, even in a loss, right? Like, you hear how glowingly I'm talking about this. Even in a loss, I feel like there are so many positives to look at from this Bulls team as we continue to move forward that and also, right, here's the other thing. In a loss, I feel like the Bulls showed me who they really were in that third quarter. I don't know if you guys peeped it, but there was that moment where the Bulls were like, come on, bro. We're going through the motions. We're playing a game. People paid money to see this, so we have to give them a little bit of something. But to me, it really felt like in that third quarter, the Bulls were like, we could be in this game if we wanted to be. I felt like the Bulls were lollygagging through a lot of this. Now, that doesn't excuse a lot of the issues that we saw, doesn't excuse a lot of the problems that I think came on the back end of that first half more so than anything, right? Because your starters were out there and you would want to see them have a little bit more fight. But we'll talk about that when we get to the bad, because there is some bad to break down with the Chicago Bulls team as well. But before we get to the bad, hey, guys, I got to tell you guys about Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. You ready for this? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. And I'm going to tell you this right now, right? I'm going upstairs. It is what time are we looking at? 12:43. I'm going upstairs. I'm not going to Wendy's. I'm not going to Taco Bell. I'm not going to McDonald's. None of that. I'm going upstairs right now to have me a Built Bar because it's that good. It tastes that good. It makes you feel that good. And when you're talking about the cookie dough chunk puffs, that's only 160 calories with a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. That's why we work so well with Built Bar here on the Locked On Network. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puffs is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with light, fluffy texture. It's so good, and you're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, like I just said, or just a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than any candy bar. Dish the calories and fat and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order. I don't have the music to like transition in. I probably could. I probably should. I have a soundboard here as well. I should have set it up. But hey, listen. Hey, I'll sing it for you. I don't know. All right, we into the second segment. Don't worry about it. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us, man. If you're on the YouTube side, hit that like button. Subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago Bulls daily on this channel, Monday through Friday. So make sure that you tune in with us on that. Also, make sure that you tune in with us on the podcast side as well and leave a 5-star review. If you're listening on the podcast side, leave a 5-star review on the podcast, because we do appreciate that and it does help us grow more. And that's the goal, right? We want to be the best Chicago Bulls podcast on the air. Here's the thing. There's some bad to get into as well, right? And I think that with the Chicago Bulls, the bad continues to be things that were similar. I did the live call tonight, called the game over on the Windy City Breeze. Appreciate you guys that pulled up for that. To me, there was, how do I put it? The corner three is still the most open shot. There was a point in the game tonight where P Kid, my co-host over on the Windy City Breeze, talked about the Chicago Bulls were getting beat on the corner three so much that whenever New Orleans got in trouble, they just passed it to the corner to see what that was going to work out to be. And it proved true, right? Like New Orleans continued to try to exploit that corner three. The Bulls' defensive issues still continue to be an issue tonight. I think that you look at guys like Alvarez, you look at guys like Hayes, you look at guys on the backdoor side, right? Where there's absolutely still some defensive issues that the Bulls still have to work through. Not to say that that's going to be the thing for the entire night, but if there was something that I was going to look at to say, hey, this is a problem that not only happened last year, but is going to continue into this season. I think that would be it, right? That would be the thing that I looked at and said, hey, you have to figure out how to fix this, and you have to figure out how to get over there. Now, do I think there was some reasons for it? Yeah, 100%, right? I think that the Chicago Bulls were dogging it. I do. I think that they were kind of just going through the motions. They were just, hey, we're trying to get some run out here. We're trying to get some rest. I'm not saying that the defense will look like that when the season gets here, but it was more of the same issues that we saw all season last season. And I think that's why it kind of glared out to most Bulls fans. Also, you gave up 70 points and a half, right? I'm not saying that you have to be out there playing Chicago Bulls 1990s top defense of all time in the NBA defense, but show me a little bit of something. Because here's the thing that I don't want to see. I don't want to see when the season gets here and you're docking it during the preseason, if you are, that carries over into the regular season. How you practice builds the habits for how you'll play. And I think that the biggest thing for me is that the Chicago Bulls in their practice didn't show great defensive intangibles, even with your best players on the court, right? Alex Caruso came up with some foul trouble. Aldasumo looked okay. I'll say Patrick Williams looked better defensively than I think most did, because I think Patrick Williams really, I mean, listen, the one thing that I did see was Zion run into him. Everybody was talking about he lost weight this offseason. How is he going to get better? Zion ran into Patrick Williams, and Patrick Williams basically was like, I'm not moving, so the ball's going to go away, and you're just going to have to deal with that. I think that there's some players that you can specifically look at when you point it out, right? Like you see worse defense definitely when Dragic is in the game. You see worse defense definitely when DeMar DeRozan just isn't getting over to his assignment out in the corner, right? I think there's a couple of those moments that you definitely can key in on. But at the end of the day, this Bulls team has to have better defense coming into the season. I'm not saying that what we saw tonight versus New Orleans is going to be what this team is by the end of it, but it's very much similar to what we saw at the end of last season. It's very the same issues, the same problems out in the corner, the same problems at the top of the key, still allowing too many three-pointers. Those were the same issues we had last season. And so that's why, to me, that like there was a little bit of a concern defensively with this team. I'm not saying that's what this team will be, but I would love to see that cleaned up going before we get into the regular season, because again, how you practice is how you play. And if the Bulls practice that way, if they go into preseason that way, well, I will expect to see that in the regular season. Another bad for me for the Chicago Bulls, just the Kobe White injury. Kobe White went down. I believe Billy Donovan said in his post-game show that it was a thigh contusion, said he could have played a little bit more. He definitely wanted to go back into the game, but just wasn't able to go back. Or the Bulls kind of just held him out, basically saying that, we don't want to make it worse. He was able to, but we don't want to make it worse. We don't want to see him, go out with a lot of injury. We don't see him want to go down and be down and out for a while, right? Like, I think that's kind of what it came down to at the end of the day. But here's the problem with Kobe White going down. And it's more bad for Kobe White than maybe it is for Bulls fans. And I'm sure there's a lot of Bulls fans in here that feel this way, because it opens up opportunity, right? Kobe White's injury opens up more opportunity. Kobe White's injury opens up opportunity for Dalen Terry to take that spot. And guess what? Kobe White went down at a time where he wasn't able to show what he's worked on in the offseason. And guess what? Dalen Terry showed that he's ready at a minimum to be a role player on this team. Dalen Terry showed that he's ready at a minimum to get on the court and play against legitimate competition. And I think that that's something that you have to look at and say, hey, guess what? If you're not going to be on the court, your best ability, I love I would love for Kobe White to come out and knock down shots and be somebody that's able to use the dribble to get to the bucket and show me what you worked on all training camp, right? But at the end of the day, you can have all the ability in the world. Your best ability is availability. And Kobe White's been somebody who hasn't been available for most of his career for the Chicago Bulls. He's had multiple injuries with the Bulls. He's had multiple injuries just since coming into the league. And if Dalen Terry comes in and he showcases that he's better, I think the bad is more so on Kobe White for that. And I think it's tough to say, but like that's the guy that you're more so looking at, that if you say, hey, this guy's gonna get benched, hey, this guy's not gonna be able to this guy's not gonna be in a part of the rotation, right? Javonte Green came out and put up 18 points. I'm not saying that's what he's gonna be during the season, but he came out and he showed out. It's about showing out. It's about how you're going to get in the game. It's about what you're going to do when you're in the game. And it's about what you do when you get your opportunity. Kobe White got his opportunity. Not to say he had a full opportunity, but Dalen Terry with a full opportunity showed out. Javonte Green with a full opportunity showed out. Javonte Green, somebody that I said probably falls out of the rotation this season. But Javonte Green said, nah, bro, I'm going to be in this mug. 18 points in this game. Right? And I'm not saying that there's an issue with Kobe. I don't have beef with Kobe. I don't want to. I'm not one of those guys that's a Kobe White hater. But what I will say is that you're opening the door for Dalen Terry to have an opportunity to come into the game and take your job. And that part kind of sucks, right? Like that's the part that I look at with Kobe White, and I say, hey, guess what? That's the game that we're playing right now. We're trying to figure out the best rotation to go into this season, and you might not be a part of that. And that's kind of what it comes down to. My final bet for the season, and I'll kind of get into this one in or for the first preseason game, I should say, as the Bulls take the L 129-125. I'll get into this one, and unfortunately Hayes isn't here to laugh with me about it. But Marko Simonovic, bro, we got to break down a little bit of this random hate that seems to be surrounding Marko Simonovic at the end of the day. But hey, I do want to tell you guys, before we do that, I do want to tell you guys to make sure that you tune in for the season preview. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview starting October 10th. A 6-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NBA season. Local team experts and the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey all combining into one Ultimate NBA Preview. It starts October 10th. Search the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, here's the thing. Let's get into a little bit of Marko Simonovic. Because I feel bad for Marko at this point. It seems like Billy Donovan doesn't know Marko exists. We've talked about Marko being a part of the rotation. We've talked about Marko being a part of the roster, being a major part of what the Bulls want to do. We've talked about his flexibility. We've talked about him being able to get to the bucket. We've talked all of it. Billy Donovan says, forget y'all. Javonte Green could be your backup power forward. And that part to me is bad, because you can't put the dude that is legitimately, what is he, 6'11", 7 foot, something like that, on the court to see if he can play. And he's the guy you gave the 3-year contract, which is the reason why coming into this season, we got to figure out how to pay Ayo Dosunmu. Not to say figure out, I guess that's the wrong way to put it, right? But we have to pay Ayo Dosunmu his money. Marko can't get on the court and catch a cold. And it's bad to me because, again, you come into this season, right, with some question marks at your backup power forward position. And I'm not going to lie to you, that's a spot where the Bulls probably have the least amount of depth. You have Patrick Williams. There's some people that don't even believe Patrick Williams is a power forward. I think he played better at that coming into the season, right? Definitely being more aggressive. You want to see him knock down more of those shots, but he got 6 shots up, 1 for 6, I believe, for Patrick Williams, right? So he got those 6 shots up and wasn't able to knock down a lot of them. But at the end of the day, boom, you've got that guy that you feel like is your starting power forward going into the season. But you don't have the backup. You don't have the guy that you feel strongly about at the backup. You don't have the guy. I love Javonte Green, but I don't love Javonte Green as my backup 4. I don't love Javonte Green as my backup power forward. I want to see Javonte Green as my backup to the 3, more so to the 2, maybe even to the point. But again, we're Marco's so buried on the bench. Kostas Antetokounmpo got in before him, and we don't even think he's going to make the team. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how the Bulls utilize Marko Simonovic heading into the rest of this season. I don't know. I don't think Billy Donovan knows that Marco's on the team. I don't think Billy Donovan knows that Marco's a part of his roster at this point. At the end of the day, right, it comes down to what is the outlook for this season? Where does this Bulls team go moving forward? I think you have to improve defensively. I think offensively, the Bulls are one of the better teams in the NBA. What does that do for you? When you're talking about on the defensive side of things, I need to see more from Io. I need to see more from Patrick Williams. I like what we're seeing in the beginning. We are game 1 of preseason, not taking this at all seriously, not taking this too far. But I would like to see more defensive intensity from this team as a whole. I'm just singling out some of those players because 70 points in the first half, right? Like, again, if you don't practice with these habits, you're not going to be able to continue with these habits. You're not going to start with these habits. On the offensive side of things, I never felt like the Bulls were out of here. I never felt like the Bulls were out of this game. I never felt like the Bulls couldn't win this game. I felt like if this was a regular season game, the Bulls would have won this game. I felt like that the entire time because at the end of the day, it was a 15-point game. It just looked bad, right? Like 40-25 looks bad. Optics are bad on that. That's a 15-point game. The Bulls can come back from the 15-point game, and they did. And when they needed to show that they could come back, they did come into the game and show that. Offensively, I feel fine about this team. I feel like the outlook for this Bulls team is higher than most people, most of the national nerds believe. But for me, right, like the one thing that I'm looking at, and maybe the takeaway I would say to take into the next game, and the most important thing taking into the next game that the Bulls can hold on to is continue to close out on the shots because very early on, the Bulls were missing or not missing assignments. The Bulls were closing out on assignments and they were knocking down good shots. The Bulls were getting a hand in the corner and they were knocking down good shots. The Bulls were, and I feel like they kind of got away from that in a second. That's where that lead really stretched out, right? You have to continue as much as you can to close out on shots because at the end of the day, the percentages will play out where they are. At the end of the day, the percentages will show, okay, listen, yeah, we got killed in the first half, but but we kept playing with that defensive intensity and it evened out. I feel like in that second quarter, the Bulls didn't continue the defensive intensity. They were like, well, they keep knocking down these shots. We got to get back and get offense on the other side. That's not the answer to me. Keep going with the intensity, keep the hands in the face, keep moving the defense in the right direction. I think Patrick Williams is going to be a guy that's going to be a real key asset in that. I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to be a guy that's going to be a real key asset in that. And kind of just find your identity as you go through this. The biggest thing the Bulls can take away from that first half, the first quarter. While you were down, you were closing out. They were knocking down shots. Averages play out. Second quarter was atrocious. Turnovers, open shots, bad passes that were leading to more turnover. There were so many things to talk about in that second quarter that I think really was a detriment to the Bulls. But guess what? In the third quarter, you fought your way back. You got your way back into the game. And I think that, to me, right, like that's the one thing that I look at, that I say, okay, this Bulls team was showing me that it could play that. It showed me that it could do that. It showed me what this team was, what this team can be if they're able to attack consistently and if they care about the game, honestly. I see some of you guys in the comments, right, talking about Brandon Ingram didn't play. It would have been a slaughter. Guess what? Brandon Ingram didn't play. If Brandon Ingram doesn't play in the regular season, same thing. If Brandon Ingram does play, maybe it's a different game. Brandon Ingram didn't play. You can only beat the players that are on the court. Brandon Ingram didn't play. Well, he didn't play. He was hurt. Well, he was hurt. Guess what? Do you think that the Milwaukee Bucks cared that the Bulls didn't play their best roster in the playoffs? Do you think that any team cares when you don't put your best roster on the court? It's preseason. The Bulls barely put their best roster on the court. Right? Like, I think that's the part where, like, the players that are playing are playing. I'm not going to sit here and have the debate, well, he didn't play, so they would have been better. Well, what if he doesn't play? Right? Like, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. What if he doesn't play? I'm sorry that you weren't on the court. We lost. Maybe we would have beat you. Maybe somebody doesn't take the shot because you're trying to take the shot and you have an off day, right? Like, there's so many intangibles. There's so many different things, different variables that go into every game, right? Like, we're talking about something like it's a guarantee. And again, this is preseason. At the end of the day, like, Bulls fans, calm down. I'm not overly hype on the team. I'm not under excited about the team. Like, I'm very even keel. We'll see where this team is when the season gets here. But at the end of the day, this is about talking about the things that are going to continue for this team to put them in the right position. Right? Like, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Shout out to the comments, man. What we got? AK saying, no, Pat, you were saying if this was a regular season, Bulls would win. Pels missing Ingram makes a difference. But if this was the regular season and Brandon Ingram didn't play, I still say the Bulls would win. Right? Like, Brandon Ingram didn't play. If Brandon Ingram didn't play in the regular season, I think the Bulls would win. We can't, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying, right? At the end of the day, I'm talking about the players that are on the court. Brandon Ingram's on the court, yeah, it's a difference maker for sure. It's 25 points a game. But I'm talking about who played tonight. They didn't play. That's what it comes down to. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us as always, man, for another episode of Locked On Bulls. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. Now, make sure your second listen is Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd, host of the #1 daily fantasy podcast show on the planet, is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm gonna be real with you, bro. Josh Lloyd is killing the game. He's one of the best guys out there, man. If you guys haven't tuned in with Josh Lloyd, make sure that you tune in with him, man. I think Hayes should be back tomorrow. We'll see. He's basically getting ready to fly out of town, so we'll see kind of where the podcast goes for the rest of the week. I don't know if he's going to be on or not. I'll find out from him tomorrow. But as always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. I do appreciate you guys for showing love to the channel. Follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Make sure you follow us all on everything at Locked On Bulls. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago.